Hey everyone, it's Tracy. This is going to be a little bit of a different video today. I have been given some questions to answer for you guys. I haven't seen them until right now, so my answers might be a little weird. So just bear with me, and I'll put them beside me here on the screen so you know what I'm answering to. But I just wanted to thank you guys for watching what I've been putting out so far. I started at the end of January, and as a way to actually upload 3D walkthroughs for people, because the files were so big, that this was a good option to do it. I could just share like an unlisted link for people, but it's actually turned into more content that I can share with people. And my goal is that it's helpful, educational, and you get something from it. So I just wanted to thank you guys for watching so far and subscribing and all of those things. So if we want to get into these questions here, let's go. So my name's Tracy. You guys know that already. 95% of you don't really know anything about me. So this was given to me as a way to just let you guys know who I am, basically, in my background, in introduction, if you will. So I grew up in Kingman, Kansas, which is a very small town west of Wichita on Highway 54. And I was there up until high school, moved away for college, and yeah, that's kind of where I started. So I was very shy, very introverted. I still am very introverted, if you can't tell. I would spend a lot of time drawing, painting, making stuff, playing pretend. I was very creative, I feel like. And if I wasn't doing that, I was outside playing, fishing, playing with my brother in the dirt, just normal 80s kids stuff. When I was growing up, I would sit around and draw houses, and I don't know why, I was just really happy doing that. So I would sit around and draw floor plans, and I still do that now, obviously. So, but in terms of art, I was already in art. That's kind of what I was doing already as a kid. And I think design is secondary to that. It comes later. But about 6th grade, I think, is when we got our first computer at home, when the whole desktop computer was getting really popular. We had a Packard Bell. And so I would play for hours on paintbrush. And eventually I got a home design program for Christmas. So I was like 6th grade or something, and sitting there drawing houses already. And so I think that's kind of what turned on the design bug for me. And specifically in high school, I took drafting in high school, and it was hand drafting. And then we got into computer aided, which was on DOS, if that dates me at all. So and so that's where the drafting actually started. Wasn't about high school. The path that I took, I was always interested in like interior design, but there just wasn't anything for that. I think there was like one class in high school for that. And there was also Trading Spaces on TLC that I would watch, and I always thought, wow, what a cool show this is. That's the type of stuff I want to do. And even though some of their designs weren't great. But I just thought it was kind of a cool concept, and I don't know if it predated HGTV or not. But anyway, that's how the art design started. And then home remodeling, renovation, that came later. I've been to a few, actually. I started out, I went to Cowley. I had an art scholarship to go there, so I did my first couple of years there for painting and design. Had a wonderful teacher, Mark Flickinger, great artist. He was just wonderful. And then I transferred to Wichita State on another scholarship and continued my bachelor's there for art and design. Had some pretty good teachers there too. In that span of time, I actually transferred to Fort Hays because they had interior design, and I took probably 3 classes there, and I got kind of bored. So I went back to Wichita State and finished out my bachelor's, and I also added on, it was decorative and ornamental painting and design. That was another certification. They don't have that anymore, but that's where I learned to do faux finishing, trompe-l'oeil, really trying to mimic certain finishes like stones, wood grain, that kind of thing. So that was a lot of fun. And at Wichita State, I took sculpture, 3D design, jewelry, a lot of drawing, life drawing. So I felt like that's kind of made me a little bit more well-rounded with what I can do and how I think in terms of design now. Then later, about 10 years after that, I went back to school for interior design, and that was at WSU Tech. At the time it was WATC, and a lot of the credits that I had already from Wichita State and Fort Hays wiped out a lot of the curriculum and classes I needed. So I thought, wow, this is a no-brainer. So then I got another associate's for interior design and an AutoCAD certification, as well as a CATIA V5 certification, which is actually an engineering program. So I wanted to do something a little different. All of them. Every job I've had, with the exception of maybe a couple, like little part-time jobs, they've all influenced where I'm at now. I look at them like a little stepping stone, and whether it's a week or months, however long you're there, for me, I look at that time and I'm able to take what I've learned and put that in my arsenal of experience and move on to the next. And I've done all kinds of things. I've done kitchen design, so I understand cabinet layouts and all of that. I did furniture, space planning for a while. Then I got into flooring, tile, carpet, wood, laminate, countertops. I sold that for about 2.5 years and worked on estimates for those. And then I started working for a general contractor here in Wichita, and I came on as a project consultant and selling remodeling jobs. And then my own way of selling jobs was drafting them, because I felt like, how can you put a job together if you don't have a plan for it? And so with that, the owners actually asked me if I just wanted to do that for everybody. And so I switched roles and became more of the drafting design person. And we had all kinds of projects there. Small, huge. I mean, one of the biggest projects that I worked on before I left that company was over $800,000 for remodel and addition, and I was part of the drafting and design of that. So yeah, all the jobs that I've had, they've all been very instrumental into where I am today. Well, as I said before, it was a way for me to share files with people from my program. I used Chief Architect to draft, and it was a way for me to share large files of information and it not burden somebody. So you can just share a link with them instead of trying to email it or whatever. But it allows me to share the 3D side of things if people need that. So that was kind of the main starting point behind YouTube. And but I also wanted to show people what drafting is and how time consuming it can be when you're trying to put together a project. That's a great question. I don't know. Sometimes I'll just get an idea and it's like, oh, I got to show people. And I'll show people whether you want to see it or not. And I guess that's the beauty of YouTube. If you don't want to watch it, then you can just move on. But it's mostly, it could be a current project I'm working on. It might just be an idea that I have or something that I want to show to people. Or sometimes people send me things, like the Reddit floor plan was sent to me and I thought, wow, I have to fix this. So I don't know, it just depends. And I'm very open to ideas on what else you guys want to see. So not really, not yet. I've had very few comments, I guess, aside from my husband giving me feedback. I mean, that's influential, I suppose, because he's an outsider listening in. And so that's helpful. But other than that, I haven't really got a lot of feedback. I have no idea. I really don't. I feel like some of the material ones do better, like the shorts, but it's being sent to a larger audience. And maybe they're just clicking through it and they're like, oh, okay. And then they just move on. So I don't know in terms of resonation yet. I don't think I've made it to that point. In terms of what am I most proud of, I don't know yet. I don't feel like I have enough content yet. So I'm not really sure how to answer that one. Well, I don't try to come off as entertaining. I think mostly what I'm trying to come across as is educational, informative, like it says there. But no, I don't find it hard. I mean, I sit here and do this almost daily, so it's not hard to me. And I think the people that understand what I'm doing, they're going to understand it. And those who don't, if they stick around long enough, they'll learn something and to where they understand what I'm doing. But in terms of being entertaining, I don't know. I don't know that I'm that entertaining. I think homeowners, they fixate on materials first. And that's probably what starts it. Maybe they're like, oh, I love this tile I saw in the store. And they fixate on that instead of the more important things like, okay, if we're switching out this floor, what's underneath the floor? What are we doing with the baseboards? Are the baseboards going to drop down? Am I going to have to paint my wall now? Kind of the snowball effect. So I would say one mistake would be fixating on materials first before the big stuff. Another common mistake is that people want to try to hire installers before having material, which is really bad to do that, because sometimes your material can take weeks to get here, depending on what it is. It could back order, it could get stuck at a port. You just never know. But I always had that come up a lot when I was selling flooring. People had an installer already scheduled, but they had no material. And it's like, you can't do that. Don't do that. Find your material first, make sure you have enough of it, and then hire a good installer. The biggest thing, and this is what I try to say the most, is if you don't have a plan of what you're doing to hand out to people in your project, whether it is just a flooring installer or whether you're painting or you're doing a full-blown remodel, if you don't have a good plan, a good draft in place, you're setting yourself up and everybody else involved with your project up for failure. So that would be my 3 mistakes there. It really depends on the homeowner. Homeowners need to be able to make decisions, and if you're not ready to make decisions, then you probably shouldn't hire somebody yet. Because we can get stuck in this cycle of just constantly revising. And so if you're not ready to make a good decision yet, that tells me you're not ready to move forward. So, but that is part of planning. So you have to get to know your homeowner, know that they're ready to make those decisions, and then you can properly plan. Okay, so now I need you to go pick out appliances because I need those in order to draft your kitchen properly. And if they're not willing to do those things yet, they're not quite ready. You have to do those things so that you can plan for a design and your project. And then it's like I said in another video, I think it's kind of the rocks in the jar analogy. You have to start with the big rocks first, which is going to be like your overall footprint. What are we moving? Are we moving walls? The big things. And then you start filling that in with pebbles. Pebbles become more like your fixtures, cabinets, things like that. And then we're going to fill it with the sand, which is your materials, those little things, hardware, and then it all comes together. And once you have all of those things in place, then you can execute your plan. Obviously my laser, that's how I measure everything. I couldn't do it without that. And a tape measure, obviously, or my software, and the setup that I have for my computer is awesome. I have 3 screens to look at, and they're very fine-tuned, and they're all the same resolution, so I can pass the screen up here and it looks the same. So if I'm snipping a screen out for an image or something, I know I can put it down below and it matches. So yeah, I really need those things to function. I subscribe to a lot of remodeler digital magazines, NKBA, and the Kitchen and Bath Remodel magazine. I think that's what it's called, the really big one that's printed. And I also have the Architectural Digest magazine, so I kind of look at those. Sometimes those are okay. For this area though, I think people don't follow trends like they do everywhere else, so I'm more guided by the homeowner in terms of trends and what they want to do. But materials, that's kind of another thing. I would rather go out in person and just look and see what's out there. I don't think there's been a lot of new materials lately. And then in terms of codes, the code book is like that big, and they update it every once in a while. So it's hard to know what the latest codes are unless you are, dealing with a tradesperson who's in there all the time, and they're the ones pulling a permit and they're getting inspected for that. But there's ways I can look things up online too for my own sake. Architects are going to focus on probably really large projects, commercial projects. You can't really pull permits on commercial projects without an architect's stamp. They're going to get more into structure. They may actually have to hire a structural engineer though for their jobs, and but they're gonna specify very specific building materials at times, and they're gonna be much larger scale. Usually they're not gonna probably want to do more remodels. Designer, that's me. I'm kind of the in-between architect and decorator, I would say. So I can draft plans for you. Sometimes we might need a structural engineer, and that's totally fine, or an architect for that matter. I know a couple here in Wichita. So, but in terms of like state of Kansas, you don't need an architect to draft a house. But it is wise to make sure that if you are doing anything wild with your framing, to make sure that you know how it's going to be built, constructed, and if you do need a structural engineer, that never hurts. Designer, that's what I do. I try to bring the plan together and the materials together at the same time. So that's why when I draft, I'm gonna draft your cabinets too, and do those sizes, and I'm gonna render everything for you so you know what it looks like too. Whereas architects, I don't know if they do that much. They're gonna focus more on the plan itself, and they're probably gonna pass off the rest of that to a designer. Decorators are gonna deal more with the finished product in terms of how it looks for when you're ready to move in, I would say. So they're going to deal with softer materials, the furniture, pillows, curtains. You know, you'll see a lot of them staging homes, and they do a great job doing that. You can sell your house faster if you get somebody like that involved. But there is kind of a clear, distinctive line between designers and decorators. And whereas we're handling a lot of technical stuff, and like I'm drafting houses and I'm fiddling with roof planes and heights and elevations and things like that, decorators are going to be dealing with the softer sides of things. So yeah, my background was painting to begin with. Beginner-friendly project anyone can start with. I would just say practice on a wall. That's probably the best thing you can do. If you can paint a wall and start there, you can just keep going with other things like trim and doors and cabinets and stuff like that. I guess it depends on what you need to do, but I would say start with your walls. Make sure they look good, and make sure things are primed if you need primer. And please use primer. Primer is like double-sided tape, okay? I keep seeing all these products out there. They want to just slap it on some cabinets without any sort of prep work. Don't do that. It'll fail within a couple years. And maybe it won't, but I bet you it will. But yeah, start with your walls. That's the best thing you can do if you're trying to figure out how to paint. I'm very picky when it comes to paint. I've used a lot of paint over the years. There's some really bad ones out there that are selling for very expensive prices. So most of mine was like specialty painting though, so I had to do the regular painting on top of the specialty painting. So depending on what room you're working on, it's going to be necessary to know how you need to clean it. So if you have a living room and you've got a lot of kids or pets even, I would say you need to stick with a satin sheen on the walls. If you don't have kids, maybe you're an older couple, maybe you're retired, I would say eggshell is perfectly fine. That's my favorite sheen. It's in between your satin and your flats. Flat, I would just do on the ceiling. Flat, unless it has enamel in it, isn't really going to hold up to washing walls and things like that. Bathrooms, kitchens, anywhere where there's a lot of moisture, I would recommend a satin. And if you're going to paint trim, I would do semi-gloss or satin. Looks fine also. But you just need, I would always check reviews, consumer ratings, that type of thing for what the best paint is out there. I have my favorite, which is Behr paint. It really, to me, doesn't compare to some of the other ones. And I know all the painters out there are biased, so that's fine. You have to prep your surfaces. Like I just said before, people skip that part and then they wonder why things are peeling off or their paint's failing or bubbling or whatever. I've seen it all the time. But you have to prep your surfaces, whether that's sanding and priming or just priming, filling in. You have to do your foundation. That's kind of like drafting. You have to have a plan before you can execute it. Just like painting, you have to do your prep work before you can paint it and make it look good. Because if you don't, your paint's not going to look good at all. But I wish more people would spend more time on prepping. And there's kind of a misconception that blue tape, which I have some right here, is to keep you from, it's so that you can blob the paint on. That's not what it's for. It's to mostly protect from overspray. So you still need to be careful when you're trimming. I really don't like using tape, and most of the time I don't. So, but if you do, I would recommend like a frog tape, like the green kind. That actually works pretty well. But yeah, that's what I would suggest for DIYers. I would say do your research. Don't do what your neighbor's doing unless you like that, but go out and shop around. Most places are selling the same stuff in terms of like flooring, cabinets. They all have the same reps in the same city, but they're all going to have different costs. So it's okay if you shop around to get the best deal. I wouldn't suggest buying things on clearance unless you know the quantity is right. That could bite you in the end. So, and I would pick a reputable installer or contractor, even though they might seem expensive up front. If they're a good enough contractor, they're going to save you a lot of headaches from trying to cut corners from hiring somebody else that you found on Facebook. I feel like one of the best upgrades you can do, if you can afford it, would be to replace your windows if they are old. A lot of your heating and air bills, your money's just going out the window, literally, because they're not insulated. They don't have low E gas in them. They're just built cheaper and not as good. So if you can afford it, I would do windows. Another thing I would recommend, if you have any pressure treated decking, anything on the outside of your house, you need to upgrade that to composite decking or like a cedar material. What's the worst? When people have a really nice solid wood floor and they put something on top of it, I think right now it's probably not a good idea. And I get it, people do it all the time, but if you have a solid wood floor and you're trying to put LVP on the top of it, you can do that, but the value of the floor that you have, if you were to, say, install that brand new, unfinished, and then stain it, it's so expensive to do that now. So you have to understand the value of what you have and what you're covering up. I would say anytime you're adding on to somebody's house, you're having to figure out, how's the roof going to work? How is it going to be tied in? Or is it going to match? But yeah, I would say additions are probably that, because you're working around what's there. And you can't see in the ground, obviously, so you don't know what's in the ground. And you don't know what you're going to run into once you start attaching the addition to the house. Like if you run into issues, I don't know, probably the first few, because I didn't know what I was doing. You can film something, but then the editing takes forever, and the setup, I can totally see why people do this as a full-time job and they have people working for them. I'm trying to just do this in my spare time. So I'd say probably the first couple were challenging, just because I just didn't know what I didn't know. And I learn something new every time I do one of these. I don't know. Well, hopefully I have more subscribers by then. That's fine. If I don't, that's fine too. It is what it is. Hopefully I've been able to educate a lot of people. And hopefully I would have had some really cool projects in the mix, and I can share it with everybody. So I keep talking about how I want to tour old homes or abandoned homes, because I see those channels online, and I think some of the places they go are really cool. So I haven't got to do that yet. We've been kind of busy, but I want to make sure that I have the right equipment to do it, and so that it's good and it's a good quality video. But yeah, I'm waiting to do that, and I have some in mind that I want to start with. So this is going to sound really weird. I don't really follow a lot of design channels or anything like that. I kind of do for my business, but I really like Sean Ryan, his show. He has a lot of cool people that he talks to, and he's not judgmental. He just lets people talk, and I've learned a lot of things just from his show, and I think he's setting a really good example of format. I like how he formats his videos too, and his interviews are kind of cool. But yeah, I think he's probably my favorite right now. I don't know anybody who could really top him, in my opinion, but I just like his format, and his content is really interesting. All right, guys, that's the questions that I was given to answer, and I hope they make sense to you. I hope this wasn't so long that you all clicked away. I don't even know how long it took. But yeah, I do appreciate you guys watching, and I hope to see you on the next one.